You are listening to Unified Through Chronic and Mental Illness with your hosts, Angie Roberts and Kimberly Murphy. Please be advised that some of the topics of this podcast can be triggering and sensitive in nature.
Psychology Today says there are an average of 123 suicides a day. For young children, it's one every 5 days.
Hey Spoonies, mental health warriors, our supporters and friends. Welcome to another episode of Unified. I'm Kimberly Murphy here with Angie Roberts.
Hey, y'all.
And today we are talking about why children die by suicide. Before we get started, we just want to make it very clear that there's going to be a lot of difficult things that we're going to be talking about today. So, extra strong trigger warning. Skip this one if you're triggered by any sort of self-harm or discussions about suicide, because this is going to get quite heavy. So on the last Sip and Spill, we kind of explained the problem with Facebook in this subject. We wanted to do this subject before. We decided to go ahead with it anyways because of their terms of service. But there's an issue with this topic for obvious reasons. One of the things that happened, and we just want to explain how this whole thing kind of got started. On the 30th of December in 2016, a 12-year-old girl named Caitlin Nicole Davis from Georgia hung herself in her garden. The whole thing was live streamed. She live streamed the whole event. She was very active on YouTube, so she was very familiar with video. And again, remember, she's only 12 years old. She reveals to her viewers that she had been sexually abused by a family member. And unfortunately, this was live streaming. She could be seen in her front yard tying a rope to a tree branch. And she said, I'm really sorry for everything, but I can't do this. And then she hangs herself, and the video didn't stop there. The video continued for 20 more minutes until you could hear someone yell her name. Well, the video went viral. They stopped the live stream and the video went viral, and it went to all of these websites, and the police could not contain it. And they would talk to a lot of these websites and say, hey, can you please take it down? And the people would say, well, it's not against the law to have it up. And it's like common decency to take it down, you know?
Right.
Fortunately, the laws have changed, and that's why we have to be very careful what we talk about. We want to make it clear that this is an awareness episode.
Yes.
We want to bring information to people about why kids could do this or why they might do this. A lot of people don't realize that there's kids that are as young as 10 years old. I'm just gonna go through a couple cases really quick because I feel like they should be mentioned. 8-year-old Gabriel Tay was found in his room after the videos were out that appears to show him being bullied at school. So nowadays, when they get bullied at school, like, kids will video it on their cell phones, even as young as 8 years old. And so he unfortunately ended his life over that. And then he had been bullied countless times in the span of 3 years at his school. So this just wasn't one event. He had been fighting with this for 3 years. So kindergarten, yeah. 10-year-old Ashanti Davis hung herself after a video was released of her being bullied at school. Jamal Miles, 9 years old, was bullied in school, which got worse when he came out and said that he was gay. So he was being bullied before, and then when he came out at 9 years old, it got way worse, and he also died by suicide. So this does happen with very young kids, and
yes, it does. Like, when I was doing my research, Psychology Today says that kids as young as 5 understand that death is final, and they do have the planning abilities to make these decisions as young as 5, y'all.
That's
so
amazing.
young.
And nowadays they can find the information easily.
Right.
Because when we were kids, like, I wouldn't even think to know how to end my life at such a young age. But I do want to mention that there was a video that was going around on YouTube Kids where it started out as a very simple video, and 4 minutes in, a man appears and he says, he gives instructions on how the children can kill themselves. And he demonstrated how to cut your wrists. And he said, remember, kids, sideways for attention, long ways for results. And he shows on his arms, and then he says, end it, and walks off screen. So this is something that happened, and I'm sure a lot of parents heard about it. It was huge news.
Right.
Where you think your child is watching a cartoon on YouTube Kids, which is supposed to be safe. And here is this man teaching them how to do that. The Momo Challenge hoax was another thing. Do you remember that Momo Challenge?
Oh my gosh, that was the creepiest looking thing.
It really was. And it went through social media. It was reported that children and adolescents were being enticed by it to perform a series of dangerous tasks, including violent attacks, self-harm, and suicide. And they weren't really sure how much influence this actually had, but just the fact that it was out there is enough. So, and the last one I want to mention, since we're talking about it, is Slender Man. Do you remember Slender Man?
I don't.
Okay, so Slender Man is this urban legend. He's this like a paranormal figure that can, some kids said that it could talk to them, it could telepathically read your mind, it could teleport to here and there. I mean, this you can look it up online. There's a lot of urban legend behind it. But on May 31st, 2 girls, they were both 12, in Wisconsin, held down and stabbed a 12-year-old classmate. And when they were questioned by authorities later, they claimed that they wished to commit a murder as a first step to becoming proxies for Slender Man. And they had read about it online. So fortunately, the girls survived. But again, it goes to like these influences. The girls are facing 65 years in prison, and one of the girls is still claiming that Slender Man watches her, he can read her mind, he can teleport into the jail. So
that sounds like mental illness to me.
It is mental. They were both yes, they were both diagnosed with mental illness for sure. But just having that influence online, we got to be really careful what our kids are looking at, because there's a lot of, I mean, think about that. What kind of person puts that in a cartoon? So we're dealing with some sick people. Exactly.
I remember being at my grandfather's funeral when I was 4 and knowing he was not coming back. So I believe that they know that people aren't coming back, especially if they've had somebody talk to them, I guess.
Yeah, if you're being instructed, or nowadays too, kids will, when they bully each other, they'll say, go kill yourself.
Oh yeah.
And that's like one of the main things, and they'll pressure them to do that. So it's really bad now, worse than ever. But I remember when I was I think I was 7 when my grandfather died, and I understood it very clearly at that age. And I remember as young as 5, knowing wondering what it would be like to not be here. So I think
that's
kids,
sad.
I know that's a whole nother story, and maybe I'll tell it someday, but yeah, it is sad. But I think kids really do understand the finality of it if they don't understand necessarily the pain it will bring to other people. They do understand the finality of it.
They do. And it's interesting that young kids who attempt suicide are 6 times as likely than their peers to actually attempt suicide again in adolescence. So
I think it's mentally you've crossed that line. So
and people think that once you survived it once, you get stronger. It's actually it's more likely that you'll do it.
Right. Yeah, it's like they say, you're practicing, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's
so
no other way to
hard.
say it. Yeah. So I thought it was, we were doing research, and I asked Angie, I was baffled by this, but kids are most likely to die by hanging, correct?
Hanging, hanging, strangulation, or suffocation. And then guns are the second most common.
I can see that guns would be an issue if there's guns in the home and the kids know how to access them. That makes sense to me, but I can't wrap my head around a 7 or 8 year old, like in this last case where the boy was 8, how they would even know how to do that.
Right.
I just can't even imagine how they would know to do that. So obviously they're learning this somewhere, and we need to be careful. Because kids, I mean, the bullies can be relentless, and with the access to the internet nowadays and all these horrible influences, they're learning how to do this. Obviously,
Right.
It's not something that you naturally know.
It's not. With the internet more available, I think that is something that is highly possible that they find it there.
Mm-hmm. Now, also, you said that there were certain types of either mental illnesses or learning disorders or something of that effect that people need to watch out for.
It was really quite interesting to find out 60% of suicide attempts, a factor is ADHD, and 33% the factor is depression.
Now, see, I would have said it was the opposite.
I wouldn't have thought of ADHD.
I would have never thought of it, exactly.
Honestly,
but
yeah.
If presented with that, I would have thought it was depression. So ADHD is very interesting. And the fact that we know that is really good, because if you can actually get your child diagnosed, that's the other issue.
Right.
This is something that you can, not to be fear-mongering, but this is something that you can keep an eye on. You can keep an eye on your child more closely if they do have ADHD or depression.
Right. It's not saying it's going to happen, but, it's saying of the attempts. So it's not of kids that have this illness. So.
Well, anything that we can look at to prevent this type of thing from happening is a positive, in my opinion. So.
Absolutely. I agree.
There are factors that make kids more vulnerable.
Right. There are factors that make kids more vulnerable. Kids that are high risk have a lot of trauma in their life, abuse, neglect. They've seen a lot of domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
They have family-related problems like divorce, custody. They're between the custody disputes. Y'all, this is so hard on kids. Can we just try to get along for them?
I know. Yep. I mean, because your family, whether you like each other or not, you have to come together for the kids.
I know it's not always possible, but anyway. Parental substance abuse, being that family history of dying by suicide or having mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
So that can definitely be something, if you know that you need to really look, just keep an eye out.
Right.
And then school problems, bullying, expulsion, changing schools. And the difference is, I'm sorry, I just want to say this: commit suicide, die by suicide. Suicide is a side effect. So it's just like if you have some kind of physical side effect and your death is by that, then that is what it is. It's
like
not
lupus. I have lupus. If I were to die by kidney disease from the lupus, that is
right,
a cause of death because of
and it's a side effect. So suicide is a side effect. It's not a diagnosis itself.
Right.
So I just wanted
I think a lot of people don't necessarily see it that way. So that's a really good point.
We're trying to change that in the mental health community.
Mm-hmm.
That's something we're trying to change, and a lot of people don't know. So
right.
That's okay.
This is a really hard topic. I hope y'all understand this is really hard for us to research. It's hard for us to talk about. it's difficult to get through. But we feel very strongly that these things need to be talked about. When we started the podcast, we said we're going to tackle those hard to talk about conversations, because until we are all comfortable talking about these things, there will not be a solution. So
absolutely. Wasn't our first podcast about suicide? Our first or second one? I can't remember.
We jumped into it really fast.
We really did.
Yeah. So here we are again, and this time we're talking about children, unfortunately. But okay, so what can we do if our child is expressing these sort of, maybe they've told you they want to die. Maybe they told you that they wish they weren't here anymore. Like, what's the kind of things that you can do as a parent?
Okay, so first of all, just be calm. You got to be calm, and do not accuse. Do not say, don't think that way, or you shouldn't feel this way. It is very, very dismissive. A good thing to say is, you can talk to me. I'm here for you. I'm not going to judge you. You know, it's a big thing for them to know that they're not going to be judged for what they say, because a lot of people think if I tell you that I want to harm myself, you are going to send me to the hospital right away, and it doesn't have to be that way. So
and you don't want kids to like isolate and shut down because of the reaction, and now you don't know what your child's thinking at all. So
absolutely,
yeah,
show love. When having a hard time, kids need to know, you know, they're loved and cared for even more than normal. I love you might not be enough. Show your love, lots of affection. Express empathy, validate feelings. All feelings are valid, and that feeling of them wanting to harm themselves is more valid than you'll ever know, or unless you know.
And especially when like these kids are in school and they're being bullied constantly, if that's a factor, they're constantly being told that they're wrong, something's wrong with them. That's being pounded into them. So you want your home to be a safe haven for them. They
absolutely
want that they're going to come to you as they are, and it's going to be accepted and loved.
Right. Yes. Say things like, that sounds difficult, and I know how painful that can be. Don't say, pull yourself together. Instead say, how can I help? Encourage professional help.
Yes, definitely. Yeah,
definitely. So important for children. If a child comes to you,
I know this is hard.
If a child comes to you and is really having issues, the best thing you can do is get professional help, because we don't know how to help them. We can't help them at that point.
Yeah.
It's just like if they had a physical illness, you would take them to the doctor.
Absolutely.
If they have a mental illness, please, I encourage you to take them for physical or for mental help. So
yeah, and let them know that it's a positive thing. So
yeah, don't talk about it in a negative light. Don't say, let's go see your shrink or whatever. No. You call it the therapist, and
a lot of them will do play therapies at first, so they get a really good introduction to therapy and can form a bond with their therapist and have a kid's way of communicating. So I mean, yeah, definitely encourage that and make sure that they know that it's a positive, wonderful place to be.
Right. And it is. I enjoy my therapy, actually, even though sometimes I'm like, I don't want to go, but then I always feel better after I go. So
right.
Minimize your conflict between you and your child, or whatever conflict is around them. Choose your battles wisely with your child. You know, it can be so hard. Don't forget how hard it is to be a child anyway.
You know what I was just thinking of when you said that, real quick?
What was that?
People who are in these horrible relationships, right? They are always focusing on what's bad in the relationship, and they're constantly talking about the problems, and they have no fun time together. They don't have like the stuff they used to do. Maybe they like to go to the movies, and they're not having those fun moments anymore. So all of their interactions are negative. Well, the same thing can happen with your child. If your child's going through this, You want to have that family time still and those positive things, and enough positive things that you can really squeeze in there, because if it's all focused on these horrible feelings, they need a break. They need to know that they can still have family night, game night, so that it's not all focused on this one major issue, which it is. But kids can only handle it for some, you know what I mean? They can only handle things in doses.
Yeah, and what a good way to teach them a distraction technique too.
Right.
Playing a game, or learn some. If your kid is having issues, please just learn some tools, and then help them to learn tools, breathing exercises, and you can just imagine how much you can help your child by that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that actually helps. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and like you said, again, positivity and fun. Like, yes, fun. Let your kids have fun. Have fun with your kids. Be positive toward your kids. Reassure your child this feeling won't last forever. Now, that is something that DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, teaches you to do. It's because it doesn't last forever, and if you can just sit with the feeling, it'll pass. So
yeah, it's hard for them to see.
It's very hard, and you need to sit with your child, until it passes.
Right. That's a good point. That's a really good point. And we talked about this before, how kids, they really can't project, a month down the road. So what they're feeling now is everything. It's everything.
Right.
Yeah.
They feel hopeless. They can't imagine things getting better.
Right.
So you have to be the one to be there. That's what we're supposed to do as parents, be the one to be there for them and let them know that things will get better.
Right.
Stay in touch. Okay. Monitor on and offline activity. Y'all.
When we just told you why. We just told you, a few examples of why. And also bullying online and offline is huge. So again, the bullying needs to be taken care of immediately. If your school is not responding to this boy that was, bullied for 3 years and finally died by suicide at 8 years old, if the school's not responding, there are other things that you can do. So go to one thing that I suggest is actually talking to a social worker from CPS. And I know that sounds funny, but it's not, because they know all the resources in your area. They can tell you where to go and what to do if your school is not responding. And it's a good resource to have, because there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. If you call them and you ask them for help, you're obviously a very good parent.
Yes.
So reach out to people. Don't be afraid to reach out.
Right. And you can, if your school is a good school, try to communicate with their counselor and make sure that, they know what is going on. And then sometimes they can talk to the teachers, and the teachers kind of watch, and the counselor's watching and helping So if your school is good about that, then make sure and really utilize that because they're there when they're not with us for the biggest part. So
yeah, they spend a lot of their time away from home, so
those extra set of eyes are amazing.
Exactly. So I know that you can sit down and talk with them and ask if they're suicidal,
right?
But what's a way to really do that with someone, say they're 8 years old, 9 years old? What would you actually say?
Well, first of all, some people that think that if you even talk about it or mention it, that it's more likely to happen, and that's absolutely not true.
Right.
The best way is to be direct, I believe. There's not really a way around asking if you are wanting to harm yourself. I would say harm yourself instead of commit suicide or something. But
because
do
harming
you want to
yourself,
hurt yourself, or how are you feeling? Are you having bad thoughts? Are you having, it matters how old your kid is, but really get down on their level.
Because self-harm too can be a step. It not always is, but self-harm is also, you can die by suicide by accident with self-harm, or it could lead to that. So that's a good point to ask them about if they feel like harming themselves. That's a good way, I think. Yeah.
and find a clinician, find a psychologist or psychiatrist who's a good match. Okay. Somebody who has experience with suicidal teens or children. Get as specific as possible with the therapist you need. If your child has ADHD or has whatever, maybe bullying
Depression,
or depression,
right,
anything like that, check and see with the counselor. They usually have a list of things that they're specifically.
And then it's also, do
good,
they get along? Do they have that chemistry? That's important.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's absolutely okay if the teacher, I don't know where I'm going with that. It's absolutely okay if your child doesn't like them to change, because you can do that even as an adult. You need to feel close.
Yeah, the last thing you want to do is be like, I'm going to take you to get help and we're going to love this, and then force them to stay with a therapist that they really do not want to be around.
Right. And yeah, and it's just like us. We might not get along with all our therapists. I've had to change therapists before.
Yeah.
Once.
Yeah. I mean, not
Once
everyone's going to get
therapists.
along. Not everyone's going to get along. So.
Right. Participate in their therapy is really good. It's a family affair. Everybody needs to help out and be engaged. If they don't want you in the room, though, don't push it. Right. Let them have their space. That's what they need. The therapist has got this. Okay. They understand. They know what they're doing, and they will speak to you afterwards. They will kind of give you a rundown of what's going on. But it gives your child a voice. It makes your child feel empowered about their own therapy, and that's a positive thing. And they don't always tell you everything your kid has said. No. But they're important if it's something really important. Right. Yep. And then lastly, take emergency measures. Know your emergency numbers besides 911. The suicide hotline number is 1-800-273-8255. And you can text, which I think is awesome. Text home to 741-741. Either one of those you can do. Know your closest hospital and call 911 if your child is not safe. If they are a harm to themselves or a harm to others, you need to call and have your child taken to the closest ER and then have them evaluated to go to a psych hospital. That can be the hardest thing you ever do, but it can absolutely change your child's life for the better. Right. And I just want to say too, I know it's easy for parents to kind of dismiss things and say, well, I'm just overreacting. My child's not really feeling that way, or I'm blowing this up, or I'm just, I worry about everything. So this is just another thing I'm worried about. Take everything, when it comes to this, take it all seriously. It's better to be wrong and do something about it than to not do something about it and be wrong. Do you know what I'm saying? So yes, you definitely want to take those steps. Do not second guess yourself. If your gut is telling you something's wrong, something's wrong. So, and if your child tells you something's wrong, it's definitely wrong. Right. So, take it all very seriously. It may be the most important thing you ever do for your child. I agree. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we got through that. I know. I just want to say, right. I want to breathe. We've been talking about doing this for a while, and everything's, we've been blocked mentally because this is really hard to talk about. And I hope that whoever's listening, maybe got something out of it so that these things don't happen in your family. Right. Because they're so young, and it breaks my heart to even think about it. Like, oh my God. So yeah, just make sure that you are surrounded with support. That's the best thing you can do, and have those numbers handy ahead of time so that if you do get in this situation, you have a plan in place. Sometimes that's, definitely, good to do, but so that you're not
in the middle of the chaos and not knowing what to do and trying to put a plan together after the fact.
Memorize that texting number. It's pretty easy. 741-741. Right.
Okay, Angie. What is the mantra for this week? And the last week? This is our last podcast of season 4. So this is our last mantra. I know.
It is. Mm-hmm. Okay, here we go. We can miss them. We can mourn them, but we cannot die with them. We have to go on. We have to remember them. Keep on loving them. We have to keep that connection alive until it's our time and we meet them again on the other side.
That's so sad, but it's also
so
comforting in a way.
Comfort, yeah.
I mean, depending on what your beliefs are.
Right.
Yeah.
It's true, though. We can miss them and mourn them, but we have to find a way to make it through and go on until it's time. Our time.
I think that's the comforting part of it is that, we really never are separated from our loved ones, and we will be reunited again. I do believe that.
Right. I do too.
Okay, so we hope that you did get something out of this episode. Share it if you feel somebody could get something out of it. Make sure you tell them how triggering this could be. So be careful who you share it with. Give them a heads up, even if you think they can handle it.
Yes.
We just want to take care of each other and make sure that everyone is safe and okay. Please follow us, subscribe, check out our social media. All that information will be announced in just a moment. We're really thankful for all of your support this season. We're looking forward to bringing you season 5. We have so many things planned already for that season. I think it's going to be a great one personally. I can't wait to do it. So we hope you stick with us and go along for the ride. Until next season, thank you for listening. And remember, we are stronger together.
Mask up. Peace out, guys.
Unified Through Chronic and Mental Illness can be found at anchor.fm/unified. There you can find all social media links as well as other ways to listen.